you know who you are? High school seems to be the time in which we become more aware of this question. We're told, just be yourself. But what teenager truly knows themselves? We know things we like and things we don't, and we start to form friendships based on these common interests. But ultimately, this question of who we are can still escape us and may cause deep insecurity. Today, some seek to find themselves through a job or passion they have. For example, someone who loves acting can immerse themselves in their craft and ultimately identify themselves with their status as an actor. Yet each of us senses we are more than what we do. Actor James Cagney once said, "Acting is just something I do, not who I am." Others look for themselves through group membership. This can be recreational, like supporting a certain sports team, or even political. Being united with others around a common cause beyond oneself can give a sense of purpose and belonging. But more often, one just becomes reduced to a cog in a giant machine. And history has shown too many of these latter groups are manipulated for power by the hands of a few. Increasingly, today, some seek to identify themselves exclusively through subjectivity. Whichever emotion feels the strongest becomes the point of identity and gives clarity to character. One doesn't have to live very long to know that emotions can come and go. It's like trying to build a house on sand. We need something sure and lasting to provide that security we need. None of these ways ultimately satisfy our search for discovering who we are.
I had an idea of God that was totally detached or just not related to my life. It was something that was passed down from generation to generation that we knew was important to identify as, but we didn't realize that it was something that we needed to be, not something that we needed to do. So I remember in high school, I would go to mass, but again, it was something that I did, not something that I participated in. You know, when I went to college, I definitely fell away a little bit further because now I went away to college. I was doing my own thing, establishing my own kind of identity through my friends, or through what I was studying, or through the boyfriends, I was seeing at the time. But I always remember wanting to go to mass. It wasn't very regular. It wasn't every Sunday, but I always knew that there was this kind of ache that when I would go to church would fill it, but I didn't know how to identify that ache. And I didn't realize that going to church was really satisfying that, but it was something that kept calling me. And it's something that I look back and once again, I see God was always planting seeds at different moments in my life, whether it was that breakup, whether it was when my parents, separated, whether it was when I was having a hard time, even through my college years, just finding that identity. When I graduated, moved back home, ended up getting, my job, my dream job. My background was in retail and, merchandising. So I was able to work for a top women's design company, but feeling this void, something, I was back, I was, again, a young adult professional in New York City. But there was this, ache, and it went through 2 more years of heartache before I realized there's something wrong. And during that time, a good friend of mine was also undergoing this kind of searching and ache, and she attended a retreat. I remember seeing her and just experiencing this joy that was just palpable. She just transmitted this light, and I was like, wow, what you have, I want. I'm like, what? I don't know what it is, but there's something different about you. So then during time I went and I signed up, I did that retreat. Throughout those 3 days, I was able to come to terms with a lot of decisions that had broken my relationship with God that I was not aware of, that I didn't know. I thought that was just part of life. It was part of living. So I think the opportunity to reconcile with God throughout the retreat, to come to terms with some of the things that I was afraid to look at because I thought it was just natural, that it was just a natural way of life, but not realizing the damage that it was doing to my soul at the time. So I think this was something that was not making me whole. But I remember this just one intense night, throughout the retreat, just kind of closing my eyes, and I heard the voice of God in a way that I had never before. It was what was this remote being in the sky that I grew up hearing about from my grandmother and my mother. Now was a very alive presence in my heart that I could not put into words. I felt like a brand new, a brand new person. Obviously, I was a new person in Christ. And I knew I just wanted more. I wanted to learn more. This faith that was passed down to me that I was, I guess, ignorant about in many ways. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to read more. I wanted to listen to more Christian music, just kind of, allowing myself to just be soaked in and poured into through so many different channels. So that was the beginning of a wonderful journey almost 19 years ago.
How do we know who we are? Where do we look? The answer is Jesus Christ. For the truth is that only in the mystery of the incarnate Word does the mystery of man take on light. Christ fully reveals to man himself and makes his supreme calling clear.
As I look back and, once again, why, it's even the way I grew up, it was so important is that all of those were little seeds that God planted, but it's up to us to also water. And especially as young people, want everything to come to us. At this time, it's the me, it's the now. But many times we don't want to put in the effort. It's like every relationship. You have to put in the effort. I wouldn't be married 6 years if both my husband and I wouldn't have put in the effort. And it's about understanding that God is everywhere, that God speaks through everything. But many times, because we are so busy, it is difficult, for us to listen. But that every decision that you make, whether towards God or away from God, it's part of that journey. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And if it wasn't for me grasping all of those different moments, from the ups to the down to the ups to the down, but paying attention to all of those ups when God was clearly present, I would have probably ended up in despair. But it was through my prayer, through my faith, and and the hope that every little step that I took led me to that point, even surrendering even more when things did not make any sense. And being okay with not being okay. And I think that's, especially nowadays with social media, with filters, with our stories, we want to glam everything up. Everything needs to be glamorous. Everything needs to be a filter. Everything needs to have a nice peppy song in the back to say we are okay, I have my life together. And others see that and they think, well, something is obviously wrong with me because I'm falling apart. And I think if we were to able to show more of our brokenness to each other, we will be more whole. Because, when we see that another person is able to show their wounds and be okay because they know that God is there with them, then another person will feel more comfortable showing their wounds and so on and so forth. And then we can heal each other. When I used to work for the Archdiocese of New York, one of my office used to be at St. Joseph Seminary, where a lot of the seminarians, and I had already lost my hair and, doing different things to make myself look better. But I would go to Mass, and I'll never forget one of my friends, now he's a priest. He would say, you don't understand what your faith is doing to so many of the guys here. Just merely being here by just joining us in Mass, you don't understand what you being here is doing to so many. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to Mass with you guys, but okay, but just that they're not underestimating just the power of presence, less words, more being. And I think that's what, if my whole journey has kind of taken me to, I did a lot. Now I'm learning to just be. And just be who God is calling me to be to whoever needs it, wherever they may find themselves in their journey. Like every other relationship, it's a give and take, but we also need to, be able to provide and put in our part to, to do the things that are really going to water our faith. And many times we want to do the opposite or the reverse. good, with God when things are good. But when you do something or take away something that was dear to me, then I'm not going to, even think about you right now, God. But, otherwise, then why are we living? Kind of like if we don't believe in his ultimate promise and everything that he has provided. And I know it's hard. And I know it may seem dismissive, but it's the truth, and it is. And the truth, it's always stares us, in the face. And, and it's something that if we don't, believe that, then it's like, I think the opposite is even worse, because then we enter into that more despair. We enter more into that isolation. We enter more into the woe is me. We enter more and many times into unhealthy habits and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I've seen that way too many times with so many people that I love, that we turn into unhealthy coping mechanism that in the end ends up harming us more than helping us.
Jesus Christ reveals to us who we are, sons and daughters of God. He reveals to us the purpose of our life, to know and love God. And he shows us the way in communion with him. Just as we see all things clearly in the light of the sun, so too do we see clearly by the light of faith in the Son of God, who is also the Son of Man.